Hello? Oh, here we go. Welcome everyone to the Women's Earth and Climate Action Network event, Women for Climate Justice, Leading Solutions on the Front Lines of Climate Change. My name is Osprey Oriole Lake, and I'm the Executive Director of the Women's Earth and Climate Action Network. Before we start, I want to take a moment to acknowledge this very challenging time for many people and welcome you all to a space for us to be together from all over the world. And also just to take a deep breath. There is a lot going on as we head into the second week of the negotiations. And to remember together the earth under our feet and the skies above us in this vast and wondrous desert land. And for all of you who are watching on the live stream, to also bring Mother Earth into this space, because so often we forget what we're even doing here, which is to be here for Mother Earth, to care for nature and ourselves as part of nature. And it's so critical to not forget what we're doing here. So I really want to bring Mother Earth into the space with us and our reciprocity with nature. So I'm really honored to have this incredible panel of women here today. And I'm going to be offering some contextualizing comments, but before I do that, I would like to introduce the speakers. Sitting next to me is Neema Namadamu, and we're very honored to have her as the WECAN Democratic Republic of Congo coordinator, and she is also the founder of SAFECO from the DR Congo. Then we will be hearing from Ariel Deranger. She is Athabasca Chippewa First Nation. She's the executive director of Indigenous Climate Action from Turtle Island. And then we will be hearing from Sônia Guajajara. She's the Indigenous leader from Brazil, and very excitingly, the newly elected federal deputy of the National Congress of Brazil. So it's really thrilling that she's just won this election of Indigenous women taking over their government. And then we will be hearing from Anne Sangole. She is the Climate Justice Coordinator for the African Women's Development and Communications Network, FEMNET, from Kenya. And it's really an honor to have you be here with us. FEMNET has been so strong in bringing feminist values to these discussions here at the COP and beyond. And then we will be hearing from Casey Camp-Hornick from the Ponca Nation. Very honored to have her here. She is the environmental ambassador from Ponca, and she is also our WECAN board member from Turtle Island, USA. So please, let's welcome them. I think we all realize we are at a choice point for humanity. With no significant action, the climate crisis will continue to escalate. And as I speak with more researchers, they're making it clear that the escalation of climate disruption is faster than anything they had anticipated. There's no question why our children are marching in the streets and hollering at the top of their lungs, climate emergency, climate emergency. Every day we see forest fires burning all over the world, massive flooding, extreme droughts, people losing their livelihoods and lives. We are in an emergency. And yet we know that climate solutions exist and that we can mitigate the worst impacts of the climate crisis, and that women, feminists, and gender diverse organizers are leading the way. Studies show that a 1-unit increase in a country's score on the Women's Political Empowerment Index is associated with an 11.51% decrease in the country's carbon emissions. That's huge. Women should be at all of these conversations, leading every conversation here. Other research has shown that actually involving women in management and decision making surrounding local forests, water, and disaster planning and response lead to more successful programs and projects. It's clear that women are key to securing protections for people and planet, whether it's on the front lines of resistance to fossil fuels, protecting and replanting forests, creating food sovereignty networks, or advocating for transformative climate policies. Women are leading the way. And this is why WECAN is uplifting women and community-led solutions, strategies, policies, and frameworks. It's code red for humanity, and we are drawing a red line to say no more sacrifice people and no more sacrifice zones or countries. We need to move forward with a climate justice framework. This is the time to unite together to build the healthy and equitable future we know is possible for each other and our Earth. And on every continent, women land defenders are rising. In many cases, literally putting their bodies and lives on the line to protect Mother Earth, our communities, and all that we hold dear. Today, I want to especially honor women and Two-Spirit land defenders and bring light to the struggles and solutions of so many courageous leaders. And they have been on the streets marching. Today, we're wearing red for Indigenous women and the whole epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women that is associated with the extractive industries. And there is a historical connection between the violence against women and violence against Mother Earth that we cannot afford to ignore in these patriarchal constructs, and it has to be healed. I ask you to join me in celebrating and standing in solidarity with women all over the world, rising as caretakers, as protectors and defenders of our precious planet and communities. Nature has made it crystal clear that we cannot buy or negotiate our way out of the multiple crises that we face. So it's critical to radically imagine a world that we know is possible and create and fight for that future. I say this because as stability in the current system falters, this is actually a time where new ways of thinking, visioning, and being can have a considerable impact. Even ideas and policies that seemed too radical before can take hold because there are cracks in the system, and that's where we can move and take power. Importantly, the pressure and insight of global people's movements are central to pushing forward transformative and bold leadership right now, because we do not yet have the politics in place to tackle these crises. And that's why we need Indigenous leadership, community-led solutions, rights of nature. We need to be out of the box of the system. We need to draw upon the knowledge and leadership of Indigenous, Black and Brown women, gender diverse leaders, and feminists who are already deeply engaged in solutions. In our WECAN network, we are speaking out in the recognition of the sacred interdependence of all life on Earth, and with the knowledge that business as usual, extractive economic models predicated on fossil fuel extraction and deforestation have ushered in an era of planetary destruction that must stop now. We are calling on governments and financial institutions at COP27 and beyond to stick to below 1.5 degrees rising in global temperatures. And we have to have policies that prioritize social, racial, and economic justice for all. Our call to action, responding to the climate emergency, which is on our website, is a call for gender justice, racial justice, upholding Indigenous rights and rights of nature, calling for a just transition, and immediately keeping fossil fuels in the ground. This is an ongoing agenda for people and planet. It is an urgent call for our very survival. False solutions, white supremacy, colonization, and patriarchy have no place in any climate action plan, and they need to hear that in the negotiating rooms. Rather, it is imperative that governments and financial institutions adopt just transition and feminist policies and frameworks. We are calling on governments to respect the right to freedom of expression and peaceful protest. This has to be our right. They have to immediately halt the criminalization of land defenders whose efforts are central to a climate just world. We have to stop the criminalization of the work that women are doing to fight for their communities, and we need governments to respect that right. Our call to action is addressed to both governments and the financial sectors as these entities work in tandem and each one enables the actions and policies of the others. The urgency of this moment is huge. 60 of the largest banks in the world have put $4.6 trillion into fossil fuel financing since the adoption of the Paris Climate Agreement. $4.6 trillion. And a report by the UN Environment Program found that governments still plan to produce more than double the amount of fossil fuels in 2030 than what would be consistent with limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees. We cannot continue with these disastrous numbers. We cannot. It's suicide. WECAN has recently released 2 reports, one addressing the G20 governments, because despite the increasing acknowledgement that the impacts of climate change vary depending on gender and the crucial role of women at the center of climate solutions, meaningful discussion of gender marginalization is lacking in most national climate change policies. This report is also on our website, and the G20 is meeting right now. And it should be noted that a recent UN report found that 74% of the speaking time at the UN climate negotiations is taken up by men. We have also released a report addressing financial institutions, the gendered and racial impacts of the fossil fuel industry and complicit financial institutions, that spotlights the intersection of gender, race, and the fossil fuel industry and the health and safety impacts for women. Lastly, we cannot move forward without addressing climate finance, which is key to both avoiding and adapting to the worst outcomes of the climate crisis. We must have a way for developed countries to provide compensation for historical emissions and a legacy of injustices between the global north and south. There needs to be finance to address loss and damage on top of climate commitments for mitigation and adaptation. Most developed countries have fallen woefully short on the $100 billion that's been promised. And even $100 billion is not nearly enough. And we know that research shows that we need at least 590% in annual climate finance to avoid the most dangerous impacts of climate disruption. You know, we should be stopping all this money in our military investment. This is where the money needs to go. We are calling for these extreme inequities to be addressed here at COP27, right here at this COP. In short, women are rising and we're not waiting. We can act now and we must act now. And that is why I'm so proud to be here with these amazing women. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our speakers, which I thank you all so much for joining us. And we're going to start with a video of the work that Neema has been doing, and then we will hear from her with her comments after the video. Thank you very much.
When I come back here after 25 years, I was shocked. When I was a little girl, the forest was here. And when I was here, I see no more trees. Idea was how again people can bring life back.
As the climate crisis increases, scientists are telling us that one of the most important things that we can do is to protect forests and biodiversity. The Congo Basin is one of the largest and most important forests of the world, only second to the Amazon in terms of size. And there we are reforesting damaged lands that due to extractive industries, agricultural business, have been completely turned into deserts.
We have now 500 women. They are planting those trees. And when you planting trees, you are owner of those trees and you are owner on the land. That is not usual on our culture, women to have some propriety, some ownership. That gives us really confidence.
Kandi 75% of the trees are going to rewilding the forest. Some of them now are 20 feet tall, and we're quickly seeing the forest begin to regenerate, and 25% are for human use so that we can ensure that we're protecting the 1.6 million acres of old-growth forest. This is where their food comes from, where their medicines come from, where the things they need for their homes come from, their pharmacy.
Ibiti akamaro ko kubitera icyo bimarira nico mbitegeyemo cyane ni ukugira ngo tuzongere tubone imvura muri iki gihugu cyacu. Ibiti byarashize.
Turifuza yuko ibino biti za WECAN zokomeza tukongera tukagarura amashamba.
Women, they are now protecting environment with trees. Women of Itombwe forest, natural forest from DRC, we are trying to protect our environment.
We're now protecting 1.6 million acres of old-growth forest over the years as we reforest in the Congo Basin.
Kuko byamariye njewe ku giti cyanje bimpesha ihewa nziza muri iki gihugu cyacu.
During the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a real need to develop more food sovereignty and food security. So now not only in the nurseries that we have are we planting sapling trees, but also lots of food for the local communities.
Vegetables we did really help so much. People to have vegetables to fight with malnutrition.
And the women are just so proud to not only be planting trees and healing their damaged homelands, but also protecting this old growth forest for all of us, for doing their part in mitigating the climate crisis. So for all of these things, it's a very comprehensive project that's lifting up women, lifting up Indigenous peoples and their traditional ways of life, protecting old growth forest and reforesting damaged lands.
All these forests will become soon big one, and we want to really to have again bring new oxygen. Winds will be stopping winds, and it's really very, very, very important. Trees, they are life.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Trees, they are life. Trees is life. And my name is Neema Namadamu. I'm from DRC, Congo. And I'm coordinator of WECAN DRC. Also, I'm a founder of Hero Women Rising. We are rising on this mess about climate change. You see the women planting trees. You see the women going with babies on the back looking for wood to cook. First of all, really the system we are living in is the mess. We are trying to say gender, women on negotiating. And when the politicians talk, is really people listening, they talking, but they are taking, they are not talking, they are taking our rights. They are taking women rights. We are taking people rights, community rights, Mother Earth rights. Let me tell you something. It's really simple. The system we live try to give us a name, separating human being. Give us a name. We are American. We are European. We are African, Asia. We are black. We are white supremacy, like she said. We are slave. No one who born slave or no one who want white supremacy. It's the system who nominating, who give you those names. You are woman, you are handicapped like myself. That is the system. They gives you name, but that system is wrong. Separating human being. Because when you see the little example about COVID-19, how everyone was affected. I think that COVID-19 is the same thing as climate change. Everyone is affected. You can be American, you can be white supremacy, you can be woman, you can be black, you can be slave. You are affected. We are in this crisis. We are together, and we are looking for how to get really solutions. And let me tell you, DRC Congo is one of the solutions we can get. Congo is the second rainforest after Amazon forest. I don't know if you know that. Secondly, is how the community, the women, if you can see how Mother Earth is abused, is how women they are abused. Is no different community. And the government is saying, okay, people, we are, the system blaming, is try to creating a problem with between population, community, indigenous people, or people are saying you are in the poor countries like DRC. It's the second rainforest after Amazon forest. It's those two, Amazon forest and Congo basin or Congo forest. There are those people taking, say they are poor. We are negotiating, but these people, why we are negotiating? That is my big question. Why? Let's all we are going to be same space. We are not these big countries who have like much money. They are not going to live another planet. I think they are trying to build some planet, but it's not possible. We are together on these issues. Let's build it together. Let's help women, community on the ground, local community, indigenous community. One time it was having really good training online with my dear sister here in Itombwe Forest, where we live. These women, we have a training online, but the women, indigenous women, us how much they have a knowledge. We didn't need medicine a long time ago. Really, we have our own medicine. And one woman told us, if during from March to May, no one who can hunting in the forest to kill animals, because those period is when animals they are pregnant, they are giving birth. Thank you so much. I know my minute is going to finish soon, but where we are talking is about how we can work together for these global issues, for global solutions. And alternative is Africa, is South America, where we can get, it's simple. We can planting 10 billions in the trees, and that is going to be really solution. And also where we are doing, we are on the front line, women in DRC. We are planting trees. If we can, we try to do our best, because we want to protect growth forest and planting, because without trees, no life. Without trees, we can't cook. We can't have a light night. We don't have other alternative. We don't have air conditioner. We don't have this artificial light. But with you guys, I invite you, come invest, planting trees. Sorry, we can have our solution back.
You okay? Do you want? You have a few more minutes if you want.
Thank you so much. You know, this is a climate change situation. Because we don't have a habit to talk on a microphone. We really breathe outside air. And that is the solution we wanted to see. We want to invite you all, helping those women, community, local community, to be with you, to work with you, to have a really solution, because it's the only alternative we have, and it's simple: planting trees. Let's not to say this is the trees. You can't give the difference between human being, community in local, with trees, with water. Let's live together. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Woo! Thank you so much for your work. And there's over 500 women that we're working with planting trees and having these local solutions, and a big part of it is this is not part of a carbon offset program. This is for the community. This is for, as Neema said, for the community to have trees so that they can live their traditional life. So what they're doing is very powerful because it's a different model, not a corporate model, for people and planet. And then, as we were saying, 1.6 million acres of forests are being protected, but it's for all of us, all of the global community, and for the local community. There is ways to do this that do not harm Indigenous people or local communities. So thank you, Neema, for your example. And with that, I will hand the floor now to Ariel Derringer. Thank you, Ariel.
Thank you so much, my sister, for those powerful words and the messages from your home territory. Iklanete, dene sotleneta, Ariel tseekwe hushe, dranje betsini hesli, Athabasca Chippewan First Nation, Hotsi Helsi. My name is Ariel Tseekwe, and my name is Dene, or Dene Sotlene. And I'm really happy that I don't have a colonial name. I was given a Dene name. And my name means Thunder Woman. And I sat with that name for a long time because I didn't really understand what it meant. And I was talking with my uncle who passed away, who was a knowledge keeper and a medicine person in my community. And he said, when you think of thunder and lightning, it's two things. The lightning you can see with your eyes. It's right there. But the thunder rolls and it sends the message that that lightning's there. And lightning and thunder themselves are a sign of changing times, from winter to spring. Something new, renewal is coming. And at that time, I was the spokesperson for my we were challenging the expansion of the Alberta tar sands, one of the largest industrial fossil fuel projects on planet Earth. And I was a spokesperson, and my name was Thunder Woman. And I realized that I was given that name for a reason. When I think about climate solutions and women on the front lines of those climate solutions, I think about what we are up against. Inequalities, reduced access to education, reproductive health, and basic human rights, increased levels of incarceration, sexual and physical violence, and murder. And yet we still are the ones that are on the front lines of advancing some of the most tremendously courageous and absolutely critical solutions that are not wrapped up in market-based solutions, that are not wrapped up in perpetuating solutions rooted in uplifting the status quo of corporatocracy and oligarchies. I think it's important to recognize that within these negotiations for the last 15 years, women, Indigenous peoples, and human rights land and defenders have been advocating that we change the discourse and move to human rights-based approaches. And yet we are still seeing in these halls, despite the flowery language peppered throughout the Paris Agreement and the ongoing negotiations since, that we are seeing oil and gas lobbyists being the largest delegation here. We are seeing carbon market mechanisms being advanced that do nothing to address the inequalities and injustices we face as both Indigenous peoples, women, and frontline land defenders. Instead, we are seeing false solutions like nature-based solutions, which are co-opting our language, our movements, and what we have been trying to advocate for, the protection of Mother Earth. We don't want to commodify our lands and territories to further endanger our peoples, to take our lands and desecrate them and leave nothing left. When we look at nature-based solutions, what I have seen in my own territory is that governments come in, they propose Indigenous, protected, and conservation areas. But instead of those lands being protected for us as Indigenous peoples, they are more interested in measuring the carbon sequestration rather than upholding our rights. They want to know how much we are taking instead of letting us live in relationship with the land like we have since time immemorial. When it comes to gender rights, I see who's on the front lines. I see the faces of the leaders of this movement. It is my sisters on this stage. It is my own family members, my cousins, my aunts, that invited me to step into this role as the spokesperson for my community. I come from a matriarchal community. As Dene Sotlene people, we are matriarchal. But just like how climate change, the root causes are colonialism, the disempowerment of matriarchs in our community comes from colonialism. With colonialism, we saw the imposition of capitalism, of white supremacy, of the patriarchy. And like my sister said, these were all constructs of the colonial project. We did not have those systems before. And sometimes people say, oh, if you want to replace patriarchy with the matriarchies, aren't you just making women more powerful? I think that is to say that women think the same way as men. And we don't. As women, our roles are to take care of our communities. We are not trying to have power over. When we talk about matriarchs, we are talking about those that care for all of us, that bring forward our children, raise our future generations, care for the land. As Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island, we see Indigenous women as the keepers of the water keepers. And that role is strongly down through our communities. My family's traditional last name before the colonists came in and changed our last name was Deskelne, and Deskelne means river keeper. So my traditional name is Ariel Tseekwi Deskelne, which means thunder woman, river keeper. I step into that role as much as I can every day to protect the Athabasca Delta from the ongoing destruction from the Alberta tar sands, from the mega hydro developments that are being proposed as transition fuels for our community, to the uranium mining to the east of us, that again is another false solution to support nuclear power. And to the north of us, we see ongoing mineral extractions. It's time for us to stop colonialism, to stop patriarchy. My friend Jacob Crane said to me, it's like the white people have been driving the bus for the last 500 years, and what they've created is the climate crisis. They done crashed the bus. It's time for them to get away from the wheel and let us drive the wheel. And that starts with things like land back, restoring the matriarchy, and empowering our communities to be the leaders in the climate movement. I want to end with what are these solutions? What are frontline, women-led solutions to the climate crisis? It comes from recentering Indigenous and frontline community values at the center, not corporate values. It comes from when we see new economic drivers, like employment to plant trees. Or in my community, we're seeing the resurgence of traditional hide tanning. And hides go for a tremendous price, and it is giving our communities the ability to restore our cultural practices, to become back into relationship with the lands and our ecosystems, and to drive economies for our own households. When we see our communities restore those relationships with the land, it increases biodiversity, it increases carbon sequestration, and we don't want that taken away from us and put into carbon market mechanisms so dirty fossil fuels can continue to desecrate our lands and then move on to the next plot and leave those messes for us to clean up. Your community should never have had to clean up the mess of dirty fossil fuel industries. Shame on those governments, shame on those industries. However, we will always stand up for those lands, for our future generations, and all the generations to come, to ensure that our communities have clean water to drink, clean air to breathe, healthy environments to live in. Because as matriarchs, that is our role, to center the health and safety of our communities. Masicho.
Thank you so much for your powerful words and also for sharing your name with us and bringing us into your world, Ariel. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now we are going to be hearing from Sônia Guajajara. Sônia, please go ahead.
Olá, boa tarde. Agradeço aqui a OSPRE mais uma vez, a WECAN, pelo convite e oportunidade de participar desta mesa tão incrível com mulheres tão potentes.
Good afternoon. I'd like to give thanks once again to OSPRE and to WECAN for the invitation. It is an honor to sit on this table together with such powerful and incredible women.
Muito importante esses espaços nos side events para que nós, mulheres, possamos falar e ser escutadas aqui no espaço da COP.
Spaces like these are really important inside such events so that we can have the women being heard not only in COP but as well as other places.
Eu quero começar minha fala hoje lembrando aqui, né, o que está acontecendo nesse momento com as mulheres do Irã, onde 15 mil mulheres estão protestando contra o uso do hijab, né, e elas estão ameaçadas de serem executadas. Então, quero trazer aqui o meu repúdio, né, a essa monstruosa ação que está acontecendo contra as mulheres do Irã.
I would like to bring into our awareness what is happening right now in Iran, where women have been protesting the obligation to wear the hijab, and over 15,000 women are facing the threat of execution. And I would like to say that I find this absolutely condemnable and horrifying.
Nós estamos num momento muito especial, onde as mulheres estão assumindo o protagonismo de diversas lutas em várias partes do mundo, inclusive a participação nos espaços políticos.
We're in a very special moment where women are taking up the roles as protagonists in various spaces, including political spaces.
No Brasil, estamos saindo de um período, né, muito trágico que foi o governo Bolsonaro.
In Brazil, we are now leaving a very tragic period of 4 years, which has been the Bolsonaro government.
Conseguimos eleger o presidente Lula e eleger junto 2 mulheres indígenas como deputadas federal.
We have managed to elect our new president Lula, as well as 2 indigenous women as federal deputies.
A eleição de Lula teve um protagonismo muito grande de mulheres assumindo também, né, como parte da sua campanha.
Lula's presidential campaign has had a massive participation of women taking up roles in various aspects of his campaign.
Tivemos os movimentos de mulheres com Lula, mulheres contra Bolsonaro, o ele não.
We've had movements such as Women with Lula, Women Against Bolsonaro, and Ele Não, which means not him, which was a rape accusation campaign.
Isso porque somos nós, as mulheres, a sentirem, né, os impactos de uma política irresponsável, genocida e ecocida.
And this is us women taking up our position to accuse political measurements that are murdering us.
Bolsonaro não respeitou, não respeita as mulheres e ainda incita a violência.
Bolsonaro does not respect women, and he also incites violence.
Nós choramos muito com as perdas de nossos parentes que morreram durante a pandemia por negligência do governo.
We have cried a lot for the loss of many of our relatives who have passed away during the pandemic due to Bolsonaro's government's lack of action.
Perdemos mães, filhas, tias, amigas, amigos, e isso doeu muito.
We have lost mothers, sisters, cousins, aunts, friends, and that has been a great loss for us.
E isso fez com que a gente se juntasse para fortalecer as nossas estratégias de enfrentamento a essas históricas violências.
And this have made us come together and strengthen ourselves in order to create strategies to such historical violence.
nós, mulheres indígenas, nos juntamos no âmbito da AMIGA, que é a Articulação Nacional das Mulheres Indígenas, Guerreiras da Ancestralidade.
We, as Indigenous women, have come together as an organization which is named AMIGA, which is the Indigenous Women and Warriors of Ancestrality.
E decidimos disputar as eleições em 2022 e ocupar espaços de poder.
And we have decided to take over the election process of 2022 in order to occupy positions of power.
Nossas estratégias deram certo, mas ainda falta muito.
Our strategies have worked out, but we still have a lot to do.
Nós precisamos continuar avançando até que tenhamos mulheres ocupando os governos e parlamentos subnacional e mais mulheres ocupando o Congresso Nacional.
Our strategies have worked out, however, we still are working to have more women occupying parliament spaces, as well as more women in the Congress, in all political sphere.
Precisamos avançar para que todas as mulheres do mundo tenham sua liberdade garantida.
We must move forward in order to ensure that women all over the world have secured their freedom.
Aqui no Egito, duas questões me chamaram muito a atenção.
Here in Egypt, two things have been brought to my attention.
A invisibilidade das mulheres. Onde estão as mulheres egípcias?
The lack of visibility of women. Where are the Egyptian women?
Só se vê homens trabalhando em todos os lugares.
One can only see men working everywhere you go.
As mulheres aqui não são vistas.
One cannot really see the women here very much.
E a outra situação que me chamou a atenção é a privatização do mar. As pessoas não têm acesso ao lazer e à natureza.
Another thing that has come to my attention is the private beaches, the privatization of the ocean and the sea. People do not have open, free access to nature.
As pessoas aqui pagam para ter acesso às praias.
People pay to have access to the beaches.
O acesso à natureza é um direito fundamental para se respeitar os direitos humanos.
Having free access to nature is a basic right within human rights.
Precisamos lutar, né, e avançar para que todas as mulheres em todos os lugares do mundo sejam livres.
We need to fight as well as to move forward in order to make sure that women all around the world are free.
Hoje existe uma rede já muito grande em várias partes de mulheres, jovens comunicadoras que já conseguem denunciar e mostrar também as suas realidades.
Today, there is a great movement all over the world of young women, young female leaders who are able to amplify their voices from their realities.
Temos mulheres, né, jovens, que conseguem já acessar curso superior no Brasil e terem várias formações diferentes, inclusive mulheres advogadas.
We have young women who are now able to get an education in the higher degrees across all levels of education, as well as lawyers who are very young.
Essas mulheres têm assumido uma luta jurídica pela garantia do território e o direito de participação das mulheres.
These young lawyers have taken upon a political and judicial fights in order to secure the rights of women.
Isso são resultados concretos de que é possível romper barreiras.
These are concrete results that show us we are able to break through these barriers.
A violência, a submissão não podem ser compreendidos como culturas.
Violence and submission cannot be considered a culture.
É preciso respeitar os modos de vida dos povos indígenas e garantir a nossa participação das mulheres nos espaços de escuta e tomada de decisão.
It is important to respect the traditional ways of living of Indigenous people, as well as to make sure that we as Indigenous women are present in the decision-making spaces.
E considerar a cosmovisão e a sabedoria milenar das mulheres indígenas.
As well as to take into consideration the cosmovision and the ancestral wisdom of Indigenous women.
Mesmo com todos os avanços que conseguimos até hoje,
even with all the advancements we have conquered up until today,
a nossa luta ainda é pela vida e pelo direito de existir.
Our struggle continues being for life and for our right to exist.
Nós somos uma das últimas alternativas para conter a crise climática.
We are one of the planet's last resources and alternatives to contain the climate crisis.
Para além de considerar as soluções baseadas na natureza, é preciso considerar as mulheres também como a Mãe Terra.
More than taking into consideration nature-based solutions for the climate crisis, we need to consider women as the protectors of Mother Earth.
E o chamado que nós fazemos para toda a humanidade é o reflorestar mentes.
And a call that we have for all of humanity is the reforesting of our minds.
É hora de reflorestar o pensamento, as ideias.
It is time for us to reforest our thoughts, our ideas.
E principalmente os seus corações.
And especially our hearts.
Só assim nós vamos conseguir reflorestar todos os territórios no mundo e salvar a Mãe Terra.
Only then we shall be able to reforest all lands around the world and save our Mother Earth.
Lutemos até que todas as mulheres sejam livres.
We will fight until all women are free.
Thank you so much, Sônia, for your good words. Really appreciate that. And I wanted to also let people know that in Latin America, there is the Escazú Agreement. That is also a way that we're working with land defenders in the Latin America region, which is one of the most dangerous places for women to protect their forests. And we're going to be having a meeting right outside this building tomorrow at 11 for anyone who wants to come learn more about that. We are organized around the Escazú Agreement and women land defenders. Thank you so much, Sônia. And now I would like to hand the floor to the Honorable Anne Sangole. Please go ahead, Anne, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Osprey, for this opportunity to speak here. Thank you to very able activists and panelists who are saying it as it is at a time when people are not sure that it's useful or it's safe to say it as it is. And so we appreciate that. And so I work at Femnet, a Pan-African feminist organization that started in 1988. And our work spans across the 50 countries in Africa. And we work on several different areas. And so this year, for our climate justice program, we started, first of all, just to say that we know and appreciate women's special relationships with our land and with nature. And this is what Osprey just said. And we know that the emancipation of women will lead to cleaner and safer environments, and the emancipation from an extractive ecological model. And so we started our journey this year in Ghana, in May, bringing women from communities, from civil society organizations, from community-based organizations from 25 countries across Africa, for the African Feminist Climate Justice Academy. And this academy took us to the Atlantic on this historic land where through tears and joy and other emotions, we thought about what this water, the Atlantic, meant to us. We questioned the school of thought that drives our way of life, a capitalist and extractive approach that is quickly driving us to extinction. Here we questioned our roles in this neo-colonial model, and purpose to raise our consciousness and reflect this in our work, our homes, our relationships, and our lives. We later found we found ourselves in Zimbabwe, and this was in August of 2022. And here we had stories of women affected by the cyclone Idai, whose government just last month declared those missing from the cyclone dead. This cyclone was in March 2019. And here Pan-African ecofeminists from Ethiopia, Ghana, Kenya, Senegal, South Africa, Uganda, and Zimbabwe, we co-created a first draft of Pan-African ecofeminist demands and an ecofeminist movement building strategy. We met again in October at the feminist COP27 in Namibia. This was in Windhoek, Namibia, where in addition to the ecofeminists from Ghana, Ethiopia, Kenya, Senegal, South Africa, Uganda, and Zimbabwe, a number of other women from other countries added their voices to our demands, and these were from Nigeria, from Uganda, from Botswana, from Namibia, from Cameroon, from Mauritius, from Tunisia, from Senegal. And they added their voices to the demands, co-signing them and sharing them with decision makers and negotiators through the Climate Change for Development in Africa conference, which was being held at the same time. And so here we are at COP27 with a number of things that we've done, a number of issues that we raised, and a number of demands and initiatives that are already up our sleeve. And so what are we saying here in Egypt? So first of all, we're saying that we are Pan-African ecofeminists, and we're saying that we are standing in solidarity with frontline defenders and local communities across the continent. And we are calling on African governments to demand, their fair share of climate action from developed nations. And so our set of demands read across 4 themes. The first, advance, adjust, transition as a common position for the continent that centers an ecofeminist future for African women and girls in all their diversity, in policy and decision making. Secondly, hold historical and current high greenhouse gas emitters accountable to ending fossil fuel pollution. And we also demand a halt to any new extractive initiatives in Africa. We also ask on debt and climate finance that we uphold and defend. We are asking developed nations to uphold and defend progressive policy considerations on loss and damage and commit to a dedicated fund for loss and damage beyond general adaptation funds. And we are saying we should apportion climate financing to local and indigenous climate solutions, as fellow panelists have said, that promote food sovereignty and sustainable renewable energy. Endorse unconditional and debt-free climate financing that is gender responsive, flexible, and multi-year. Develop progressive and radical tax justice policies against corporations, including building accountability for minimum and living wage labor compensation, collectively demand for debt cancellation, reparations for colonial debt, and historic and ongoing emissions which have funded and continue to fund development of the global north. We're also saying that we should foster on meaningful engagement. We foster meaningful and equitable representation of women and girls in all negotiations and decision making, including frontline community women leaders. Facilitate meaningful engagement of civil society pre-COP as well as post-COP to enhance accountability. Resist corporate capture. Demand for the exclusion of multinationals from COP negotiations. We're also calling on all state parties to prioritize a continent-wide land reforms that promote equitable access to and control over land by women, invest in and promote locally led gender just and feminist climate solutions, and of course we do support the UN rapporteur on the promotion and protection of human rights in the context of climate change. And so in Zimbabwe we also developed a poem as ecofeminists, as Pan-African ecofeminists. We co-created this poem, and I'd like to read it out to you as I conclude. This one we call a Pan-African Ecofeminist Womanifesto. And so, we are indigenous, we are deeply rooted, and we are ecofeminists. We give ourselves the permission to dream, to dismantle power. With hope in our hearts for a different future, we're able to build collectively. One with nature, our power shines forth. We want solidarity and power. The cool breeze is who we are. The ones working towards equitable and sustainable nature practices. We are alive, and we are that which gives life. We are African women working to defend the environment. We cannot keep bleeding for them to become rich. We are who we are. We are the feminist power. We are Africa, an Africa that blossoms with hope and oozes sparkles of an ecofeminist future. Ecofeminism means women's roots. Women's rights are nature's rights. Fed up with climate change, we are thirsty for climate justice. Our fight is to decolonize. Our struggles, our dreams are valid. There is so much hope for the African women when we stand together united. A lucha continua. Thank you.
Woohoo! Thank you. Thank you so much, and for your important remarks. Thank you very much for your leadership. And now we have brought onto the panel a youth leader voice, Jessica Griffey, and she's an Indigenous youth leader from Santa Clara in Ecuador, and she's part of the Pea Atua resistance movement. And we welcome you to the panel and your interpreter. Thank you.
Buenas tardes, compañeras, compañeros de lucha de diferentes colectivos, pueblos, comunidades, organizaciones, así también saludar a los hermanos vecinos de diferentes países. Aquí presentes. Tengo el honor de presentarme. Soy Jessica Grefa, de Santa Clara, de la Amazonía, de Ecuador.
Good afternoon, friends from the various fights of different collectives, communities, nationalities, organizations, as well as I also want to say hello to the brothers and sisters and cousins of other Latin American countries.
Gracias por brindarme este espacio en donde puedo expresar ese sentir a través de las voces de la selva, de las montañas, de las piedras sagradas, de las voces de nuestros abuelos. Tengo este permiso en poder estar aquí al frente en representar a mi colectivo de jóvenes de Piatúa Resiste del Ecuador.
Thank you very much for giving me this space in order to express myself from the voices of the jungle, from the mountains, from the voices of the rivers, from the voices of our sacred rocks and of our ancestors.
Ahora quiero contarles una historia en breve, una historia de una comunidad llamada Sachawarmi.
Today I would like to tell you a short story, the story of a community called Sachawarmi.
El significado en español Sachawarmi significa mujer de la selva.
The meaning of Sachawarmi is woman of the jungle.
Esta comunidad ancestral está liderada solo por mujeres indígenas. Este nombre le puso el papá de Sônia Grefa.
This community is named after ancestral, sorry. This name was put on the community by the father of Sônia Grefa.
Ahora déjeme presentar a esta mujer líder, pero que no se encuentra aquí en esta COP. Ella está en el Ecuador, en la selva, cuidando el territorio, cuidando de sus hijos, cuidando de su familia.
So I would like to present this woman who is actually not here at COP. She is back in her territory, taking care of her children of the jungle.
Ella quiere hacer conocer este caso.
And I would like you to get to know this case.
Ella es presidenta de su comunidad Sachaguarmi, quien ha venido luchando desde hace 20 años, luchando por defender su territorio de 600 hectáreas, que todo esto lo dejó su padre.
This woman has been the president of Sachaguarmi for the past 20 years and has been defending 600 hectares of ancestral territory.
En el año 60, el Instituto de Reforma Agraria, ahora llamado MAGAP en Ecuador, ha llegado a este territorio a colonizar. Desde ahí empieza todo este conflicto, en donde antes la familia de Sônia vivía en armonía con sus familiares y armonía en conexión con la naturaleza, la Pachamama.
So in the 60s, an Ecuadorian ministry for the reformation of agriculture came and started to sell off territory. And so basically separating the family of Sônia Grefa from their ancestral lands.
Ahora Sônia tiene 6 demandas de parte del GAD municipal por departamento catastral municipal, en donde dicen que Sônia es usurpadora de tierras y también acusado por daños ambientales, el cual todo es mentira.
So Sônia now has 6 cases against her that say that she is damaging territory that is not hers.
El padre de Sônia siempre los llevaba a sus 12 hijos a conocer sus linderos para poder reconocer el límite de sus territorios. Ellos siempre cultivaban grandes plantaciones de ungurahua, de árboles grandes, frutales y también de pasu.
So since she was a child, Sônia's father took her and her other 11 brothers and sisters to walk the paths of their territory so that they always know what is their ancestral land, including there are ungurawa trees that are planted throughout the land that denote the territory's limitations.
Así ellos conocían anteriormente sus linderos.
So that is how they came to know the limits of their land.
Ahora, en el año 2011, la comunidad empezaron a empezar el proceso de legalización, pero sin embargo no se avanzó, porque esas tierras estaban legalizadas con otros nombres.
So in 2011, this community began to go to the ministry to legalize their lands, but when they went there, they realized that they couldn't legalize their land because they were already legalized in the name of other people.
Estas tierras, con estos nombres, el objetivo de ellos es querer construir grandes complejos turísticos, piscinas, canchas, entre otras.
So these people who took the land, they want to make big tourism complexes with swimming pools, hotels.
Ahora, el colectivo de jóvenes de Pitiua Resiste, parte de la organización del pueblo originario quichua del Cantón Santa Clara, empezó a realizar estudios antropológicos para poder evidenciar la vida de los ancestros. Ahí se hallaron las chozas, viviendas típicas de los que vivían antes allí. También se evidenciaron vasijas, materiales de la cocina, entre otras más.
So now the collective of Pitiua Resiste, young people, along with the original peoples of Canton Santa Clara, have begun to do an anthropological study to show the ancestral belonging of this territory to the community of Sônia. They have unearthed ancestral homes as well as parts of vases and other remnants.
Ahora la lucha es legalizar el territorio y así poder seguir resistiendo de manera que esto ayude a estar en estado de conservación, porque cuenta con un bosque primario, muchas cascadas, cuevas, ríos hermosos y una diversidad de animales y plantas.
So the fight now is to legalize this territory so that they can keep resisting and maintain the biodiversity of this land, which has a lot of clean rivers, of caves, of waterfalls, and a lot of biodiversity.
Si quieren ayudar a mitigar el cambio climático, decirles que necesitamos de su ayuda para poder ayudar a las demás comunidades que también tienen los mismos problemas, pero nos falta financiamiento para poder seguir llevando estos procesos internamente.
If you want to help climate change, please tell us, because we need the finances to help us do this fight, win this battle.
Ahora también decirles que anteriormente la participación de las mujeres en diferentes espacios siempre ha sido invisibilizados.
So before, the presence of women in various spaces has always been invisibilized.
Siempre nos decían que teníamos que estar en la cocina o en las asambleas repartiendo chicha.
They've always told us that we need to be in the kitchen or in the big events that we have to be serving chicha.
Pero todo eso ahora para nosotros las mujeres jóvenes no ha sido fácil para poder estar aquí dialogando con todos ustedes.
For all of these reasons, it hasn't been easy for all of us young women to be part of this event here with you today.
Queremos que vean que nosotros estamos en las condiciones y capacidades suficientes para cualquier función.
We want you to see that we've had to confront all of these things to be able to be here and to do this work.
Las mujeres hemos venido sufriendo por este cambio drástico, por estos derrames petroleros. En el norte de la Amazonía también sufren mujeres con enfermedades del útero contra estos derrames petroleros.
Women in the Amazon are really suffering for a lot of things, including the spills of petroleum, which has caused illnesses including of the uterus.
Muchas de las veces hemos sido víctimas de acoso, de violencia psicológica, de maltrato. Para poder llegar a cualquier espacio, poder ocupar espacios públicos, siempre nos ponen alguna condición para poder estar allí.
A lot of times we've been victim to various forms of violence and abuse, and they always put a lot of conditions for us to be able to reach spaces like this.
Nosotros hemos resistido ante una empresa grande en contra de una hidroeléctrica y quienes nos pusimos al frente fuimos las mujeres liderando esta lucha.
As women, we've confronted a big hydroelectric dam project, and we've been on the front lines of that fight.
Después de enfrentarnos con el Estado, hemos ganado a que nuestro río Piatúa sea intocado.
We've even had to go against the Ecuadorian state, and we won the fact that this river continues to be free and clean.
Aunque hubo un gran porcentaje de deforestación que dejaron la empresa, pero hace 3 meses por este cambio el río sufrió grandes inundaciones en donde murieron una diversidad de peces nativos. Todos nosotros no podíamos ir a nadar, todos nosotros estábamos asustados, pero hace 2 semanas atrás el río volvió a su estado natural, está un río cristalino, pero esto nos hace un llamado que debemos de hacer conciencia, que no debemos estar negociando a los seres naturales. Son seres naturales, no son un recurso natural. Debemos de cambiar esta dinámica. Gracias.
The river already suffered a lot from the deforestation that the company from the hydroelectric dam caused. 3 months ago, there was a big landslide that led to the river becoming very muddy and very dirty. We weren't able to bathe there, but now it's recovering. What we want to say is we don't want to talk anymore about natural resources. These are living beings. We want to talk about natural living beings. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and it's wonderful to see the power of the youth voices and the young women who are now coming up and rising up all over the world. We thank you for the work that you do. And also, you know, everyone, it takes a lot of focus to be in these spaces, and we really also appreciate people understanding different languages, and having language equity and language justice is really important. So thank you also to the interpreters and for people's patience, because if we're going to solve the climate crisis, we're going to have to work together, and that means we need to really listen and take time and understand each other's different languages and work together. And I know it's a very long day, and I really appreciate the interpretation and people's patience with listening, because it's going to take being uncomfortable at times and pushing ourselves, but also doing it in a way that cares for one another. So I really want to thank you for the care in everyone's listening and taking that time, because that is how we're going to get through this together. We can only do this together. So thank you. It's part of our self-care as feminists to do this together. And with that, I am really honored to invite Casey Camp-Hornick from the Ponca Nation to take the floor. Thank you, Casey.
Zatia ishi wite ke Ponca abadi manchte Ponca, Oklahoma. Uahe tamajik te tenike ganka gi te ati weebdaha. Judy is my true name. I'm a Ponca woman from the occupied territory of Oklahoma, in that place they call the United States of America. Pretty foolish guys. Yeah, I think Columbus made that misnomer, right? When he made the mistake, at a woman's direction, by the way, to go across the ocean and think he found India. So they call us Indians. Oh my. And I want to first say thank you to the indigenous spirits that live within this earth here, of whatever form they may be, of the Stone Nation, of those bones that belong here, of the waters that run underneath here, of the sacred sun. I remember reading that it was called Ra, and I recognize that feeling within me when I'm out in the Father Sun, the beautiful Moon Mother who governs the seas and the waters within women and men, and this quadrant of Mother Earth that is called Africa, and this continent that welcomes us. Thank you for allowing us to be here and to share this moment with you. First, I'm going to ask you all the question that we're asked all the time. Why are you here? Go inside yourself just for a sec here. Feel you. Feel you. I believe, and I'm a great-grandma, and I'm a descendant of some powerhouse women and men, and I see the men here that are acknowledging that they're part of all of this climate solution. Not the problem, but the solution. I acknowledge all of the women here who are part of the climate solution, all the women I've been listening to and learning from here. I also acknowledge those that are in those rooms believing that they're decision makers for you and I. Nope. No. They believe that they are power. And we as indigenous people understand from the very core of us the same thing as you're feeling in your core. That as the Mother Earth fed you today, as she gave you the milk from her breast called water, as those rooted things came inside you, those forelegs that you ate, the breath from the winds that we share, came a certain energy and a certain knowledge that says, Mother Earth, any violence against you, my mother, the one mother we all share, any violence against you is violence that I feel. Any love that is given from all of you right at this moment to your generations, to the ancestors who brought you here today, to the spirit of this nation, to the internalization of your own power, is the reason that we're here together. Because as we eat from her, as we drink from her breath, as we breathe the air from the Father, as we absorb the sun, as we feel the tides of the Moon Mother We are energized to know what is true power. The power is that the sun came. Those that call themselves that power are much less than you in their knowledge, in their spirits, because they're thinking of themselves. They're thinking of a false economy that is made up of make-believe stuff that they call a bank, and they put numbers behind it, and then people like, what's that one guy, that Musk person? Yeah, he just makes up stuff, and everybody's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna follow that person. I don't do social media because I'm here with you in person. And wherever you are and wherever we are, we're connected in spirit because we have the one mother, the one father, the one moon, the one water, the one forest, the one mountain, the one mother ocean that makes us who we are, and we are not separate from nature. We are nature, here to protect ourselves. Our species is a gift Wakanda, the Great Spirit, put into this place, this beautiful circle of life that was to be innately connected with all things, and we are. But those ones, they forgot. And someone even told me they forgot. That's how disconnected they are. We understand circular economy. That's our life. We understand matriarchy because it just is. I tell my own little funny joke about, because I'm always on these panels with professors and amazing folks that have learnings and everything, and I always say, well, I'm a graduate of MIT, you know, matriarch in training, right? We are that. We have an innate understanding that is beyond anything that they are going to call their power. And with the power that we are assuming, it's because Mother Earth is feeding you that power. Because she is saying, at this moment, things are wildly out of balance. And you're feeling that. You're feeling that calling within yourself to be part of the rebalancing. All power is assumed power. Remember that. All power is assumed power. So what do? We assume the power that is naturally ours in whatever human form that we're taking right now. We make relationship with the Thunder Nation, as my girl down there talks about. We make relationship with the water when we say thank you, when we take a drink. And we pray for her wellness as she prays for ours. We make a relationship when we share the breath that we have. We make a relationship when we put out our food. We make a relationship when we put trees in the ground, again, to reforest what humanity has done. We make a relationship when we come into spaces like this and we say words like equity. We say words like implementation of the rights of Indigenous people. We demand the power to be the sovereign people within our own territory that allows the land to speak through us. And by doing those things, by recreating those circles within our circles and connecting the circles into this giant globe and universe and feeling the star power. In coming to this ancient place that has fired the imagination and the strength to spread in different directions, we will manifest then the healing. We talk about caretaking one another. We have to do the same for our Mother Earth. as she does for us. We have to feed and nurture the spirit of all living things. We have to, within our nation, we're looking at these statutes, these laws, because we are a sovereign people. We have our own courts. We've passed statutes that are recognizing the rights of nature, again, recognizing in our original instructions that we are not separate from nature, we are nature. So if we say the rights of nature, that means all living things in whatever form they are have the right to be free of the mass murders called the extractive industry. When we, in July 6, enacted the rights of the sacred rivers in our territory, it's because she demanded that and we listened. And so we put into written form in a Western language how to be able to do that. And today, and this day on, we're all connected. We're connected through the voice. We're connected through this magic thing called internet. We're connected through the waters in our bodies that flow from every angle. We're connected through the breath, through the food, through the Mother Earth and the Father Sky. And I'm so honored. Weeb Lahan.
Woo! Woo! Thank you so much, Casey, for your powerful comments. And we're going to need to close our session, but I very much want to thank all of the incredible women leaders who spoke here today. And for all of you who are here, this space can be incredibly challenging, as we all know, and it takes a lot to be here. It's a privilege to be here, and it's also a lot of work to be here and advocate, and to be following the negotiations, and to be standing up for the things that we believe in, and to be feeling the power of these colonized patriarchal institutions. And the energy of that is confronting us every single minute we're here. And so I hope you will feel the healing and the power of all the women that have spoken today, so that as you go through this week, you can remember the beauty and strength of these women, the land that they come from, the land where we're standing right now, and carry that energy with you so that you do not feel defeated, you do not feel oppressed, that you do not feel that your energy is being sucked away from you, that you can stay grounded in your purpose of why you're here, why we are here together to say no more sacrifice people, no more sacrifice countries, and we have a different view of the future. As you heard today, we have a different view of where we're going, and we demand that we have the future that these women are holding, that we are carrying as human beings, and that we stop this old system that is so destructive. So I really thank you all for giving us so much courage and energy that can carry us through, and thank you all for joining us today. We really am very appreciative that you could be here and hear these stories and take them out. Let this be a good ripple. Thank you.